It's Portraits, Part 3. We'll be doing our face shape, our neck, our ears, and our eyebrows. You will need your portrait mat from last week with your eyes, nose, mouth, and your eye measuring tool, pencils, eraser, a mirror, and your face. The first thing we should do is observe. We want to draw our face shape. So what we're going to do is visually plot points. Well, I'm going to actually plot points, but you could visually do it or actually plot points. This is graph paper. Have you seen it before? It's where we have evenly spaced horizontal and vertical lines. It creates a grid. Now take a look at my portrait where I put the symmetry line and the eye level line and the tick marks from the measuring tool. Watch what happens here as I run my pen across. Doesn't it appear that there are lines that would overlap evenly, horizontally, and vertical? Look what happens when I actually draw them. Yes, there is a grid. We don't need to actually draw those lines, but as artists, part of what we do is understand that they exist and give us places for matching up points. By plotting, I can find the contour of my face. My cheek lines up with the bottom of my nose and the outside edge of my eye. Through careful observation of your face and using that imaginary grid technique, you'll be able to keep yourself in proportion. If you're having a hard time visualizing, I've drawn it for you so you can have a better idea of what you're trying to train your brain to see. All right, let's get started. So the first point I want to do is the edge of my head. So it's kind of halfway between the first eye measurement. Now I'm going to do that cheek point, and notice again it's lined up with underneath my nose and a little less than half of that eye. Now I'm going to go down and do kind of my jaw where it just starts to turn. Again, I'm always looking. That lines up with my iris and kind of the halfway in between my chin. These are things you're trying to do when you are trying to plot out your points. What can you relate them to on your face? Once you would have the points, then you can kind of connect them like a good old dot to dot. Let's talk about our neck. Observe it. If I held up a pencil, I would notice that my neck kind of lines up with the outside edge of my eye. I've drawn a line here so you can see it a little better. When we draw on our portrait, we won't draw a line. We'll plot it. Notice how it lines up with the middle of my mouth and the outside edge of my eye. In addition, I'm going to observe the curve of my neck and the spacing of that curve. About one eye's worth of a curve here happens before I go down to my shoulders. Let's map out our ears. Well, unfortunately, my hair's kind of covering it, but it would be under my nose and just above my eyes. Good thing I can turn my head. Take a look, a much better view. I'm going to hold up my ruler. Notice that the bottom of my ear is kind of lined up with the bottom of my nose, and the top of my ear is lined up with the top of my eye. I'm going to need to keep that in mind when I add it to my drawing. Now it's time to talk about eyebrows. What seems so simple is actually very important to make you who you are. So observe them. I'm noticing that the outside edge lines up with the left side of my eye-ish. But the right side, notice it goes past your eye. Do not shrink your eyebrows. Then you're looking for the line that creates the bottom portion. You're looking for the height of it. I always notice that it's about the height of my iris, give or take. And then you want to know what's the shape for the top. Observe it. Don't just draw anybody's eyebrow. Okay, it's time. Let's get this on our paper. We are going to start with our face shape. So the first step is to observe. Pull out your mirror. You're going to look for 3 or 4 spots where the contour of your face kind of changes directions or angles. Remember, I did about 4. The bottom of my chin was already there, but then about 3 other ones. First one I'm going to do is where does the side of my head start? If I look at the eye level line, that first eye unit of measurement, it's about a little less than halfway is where the edge of my face lines up. So I'm going to make that mark. Next, I'm going to observe. I'm looking at the contour, the outer edge of my face. Remember, I think of it as a grid, and I'm noticing it kind of juts out. My cheek juts out, equal with like the bridge of my nose. And here, I can use these lines to kind of create a grid, and I can figure out how to draw that curve on my face. Again, remember, you can either choose to plot points or just draw imagining points. A next point I notice will be down by my jaw. Again, it's kind of lined up with the outer edge of my eye and halfway between my chin. I did that one a lot in the earlier observation. And now look, dot to dot, make a connection. Now I know that I go from the jaw down to my chin, but I know there's another slight change, right? So I need to figure out a point somewhere in here. I'm going to observe again, and I'm going to notice that there's a slight change that's lined up almost with the corner of my mouth. So I'm going to make that curve happen first. Again, you can choose to plot points or just observe and make those changes happen. I usually do a mixture. Sometimes I plot a point, sometimes I just start with drawing the lines, but I've observed and imagined a grid. We are symmetrical, so I will have to copy this to the other side. But first, let me make sure I like what I've drawn. So I'm going to take a little bit of extra time and curve up some lines, observe and curve, and make some slight changes, making sure that I like the line as I've drawn it. Remember, once you're done, you will go and you will copy. When I copy, I think of the grid again. Using the grid technique will help me to plot these points and keep myself symmetrical. It's easy to draw it once. It's harder to draw it the second time and to actually get it to match up. There's a lot of correcting. There's a lot of fixing. Take your time. Of course, I have sped up this video. Even though we've put away our mirror, check every now and then. Our face shape is us. Check. If it's not your face shape, fix it. It needs to be you. Pause here. Take your time and get that face shape right. It's time for our neck. In our observation, we noticed that the distance between our shoulders and the bottom of our chin was about 1 eye. So I'm actually going to put a mark on my paper to help me out there with the curve. Remember, if you had lined up a pencil with your neck, it goes kind of on the outer edge of your eye. So I am going to use that concept and I am going to kind of come down from the outer edge of my eye. Now that would be 1.5 eyes wide, right? Good thing I have this measuring tool. I could drag my pencil down or I could just pull out my measuring tool and line it up like I did earlier. That's 1/2 of an eye. This is 1 eye. And then what I noticed through observation, it's not exactly at the outer edge. I'm going to go out a little bit farther. And again, plotting a quick little point. That's where I'm going to start my neck. A little bit beyond 1.5 eyes. I'm going to do on the other side as well and try to keep myself symmetrical. Again, remember we observed the curve in our neck. So I gave myself that guiding line down there about 1 eye beyond my chin. And I'm going to try to draw the line and start to curve it out. For the size of the paper we're using, our actual shoulders would not fit. So that is why we're just going to go right off the page with this line. If you're watching and drawing at the same time, this is where you pause to do your neck. How about our ears? Through observation, we notice that they line up with the top edge of our eye and the bottom of our nose. I am drawing little marks, little points, so I can know how tall to make my ear. Observe your ear, but make sure you're looking at it from the proper view. Turn your head more straight forward so you get the right view. And then observe and draw. The generic shape of an ear would be considered maybe a C or a half of an oval, but there's little nuances, little areas where they go in and out. Observe your ear. Try to make them match. And yes, go ahead and draw on a few of the inner lines. Don't go crazy with them, but draw on a few of those inner lines to show that you do have an earlobe. Take your time though, as always, and make sure you're symmetrical. We have a grid. Let it help you plot the points and match things up. Pause here and draw your ears. If you're having a hard time imagining grid lines, let your pencil help. If you lay it down, it can kind of be a grid line for you. It's time to do our eyebrows, so observe. Here's what I want to do first, is figure out what's the space between the top of my eye and the bottom of my eyebrow, and what's the shape. So here you're going to notice I plot some points. I take some time and observe, and I plot out the points to kind of help me when I go to draw my line. And then it's kind of like a dot to dot. These lines help me to draw the contour of my eyebrow. Once I've got the bottom line, I can do the top line. Again, pay attention to the height of your eyebrow. Don't just do any height. Once one side is done, you know the drill. You will copy. I put my mirror away and I try to match them up. Eyebrows are important. Don't rush it. Pause here and make them match. Just a few final steps. Make some observations, make some adjustments, and do some erasing. It's the final look over your portrait time. You can erase your symmetry line and your eye level line that's within your face, and just make sure you are symmetrical. Next time we meet, it'll be for part 4 and our hair. Make sure you are having a good hair day. See you then.